me alive. Tony's awake. All right, Mr. Manager, I guess we're ready.
Two things today, Commissioner. We have a short agenda review, which will just take a minute to do because the April 10th agenda is pretty light. And then we're going to have, the bulk of the meeting will be David Spears and his crew will be talking about stormwater management. So each of you should have a copy of next week's agenda. This is for 1 week from tomorrow. There is a proclamation at the beginning. And then we have an appointment in Commissioner Howell's district regarding Animal Control Advisory Board. The only new business item currently scheduled is the Board of Bids and Contracts. And we have two consent items. One is the use of the Coleman parking lot and the corrected tax roll for the change of assessment item under F. Both of those are routine.
One question on item Echo. We're not going to charge them for use it, are we?
There's a minimal fee for attendance.
I know, but this is honors advice. This is for fallen police and sheriffs and so forth. Surely we wouldn't charge them, would we?
If you want to bypass that, we certainly can.
I don't know. What do the rest of the commissioners do?
I agree.
They're not the right people to charge. They're not trying to raise money for something other than to help fallen police and sheriff.
We'd be glad to bypass that.
Okay. Good.
Well, so while we're having this discussion, my policy head's spinning because I think we let people use this slot a lot. I mean, frequently. And I want to make sure, and they're all good causes. So we hear what you're saying, and we'll make sure that we will take care of this. But it may be rather than not charge them anything, it might be some type of resubmission back or something. I want to look at the policy and how we manage that space.
Okay.
But I hear what you're saying.
But I know we use it a lot, but automobile use it, and we charge them like $200 or something like that. But they're doing it for profit. And honored of, I can't say it, but the one for the fallen police officers and sheriff's officers really are not doing it for profit. So.
On occasion, bypass.
Very good.
Depending on who's doing it.
Okay. And I'm fine with bypassing as long as the commission has the authority to do that and we do it fairly and consistently, and they are the ones that make the decision. We'll take care of it.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
That's it for the agenda.
Any questions on the agenda?
I just will say that the trash bag handbag, if anybody else wants to participate, I would be happy to get you a blue trash bag to carry around for a week. Do you guys have any clue what it's about? So when children leave and they, on average, I think in foster care, they move on average 8 times. And so generally when they move, they only get a trash bag or some sort of plastic bag to take their stuff to and fro. So you'll see me that week carrying around a blue trash bag as my purse in representation of those children who move on average 8 times in foster care. So if you guys want to join me, I'd be happy to get you one.
Okay. Hold the laptop.
It might rip, but yeah, you could try it.
Double bag.
Yeah,
Oh,
double bag.
And that's the one you want to read, right?
Yes.
Okay. And that's a good point. Commissioner Cruz asked to read that, and I know that Commissioner Howell's asked to read some in the past. I'm always welcome anyone that wants to read a special proclamation. Please let me know, and then remind me before that, because I'll sleep once or twice between now and then.
Got it. Thank you for letting me read that.
David, is Scott coming up, or how are we starting stormwater?
Scott is here.
All right.
He's a stormwater engineer. He's going to talk about stormwater management in Sedgwick County. Commissioner Howell requested this. Scott made a presentation to SCAC, Sedgwick County Association of Cities, and Commissioner Howell liked that and asked him to do it here today. So, go ahead, Scott.
All right, sounds
Morning,
good.
Scott.
Good morning. All right. Good morning, Commissioner and County Commissioners. You might turn around and look. Can you see it up here?
No, it's
they don't have
Okay. Just those two. Okay, there's a lot of pictures in this presentation, but what I wanted to do is go over the duties of stormwater management. And the main duties of stormwater management is overseeing the stormwater permit with KDHE. It's an MS4 permit. I supervise the stream maintenance program and then obtain necessary permits with environmental permits with state and federal agencies for road and bridge design. And then I design 6 to 8 bridge-sized culverts in Sedgwick County. These are bridges that have been deemed insufficient, and we're replacing them with our in-house bridge crew rather than hiring a contractor. It's a lot more cost-effective doing it that way. Then I also assist with 26 townships with drainage concerns throughout the county, and then I review and approve drainage plans for Sedgwick County MAPC. The rules that govern drainage plan design. Go ahead.
For the MAPC, do you do the city also?
No, I don't do the city. So just the unincorporated areas in Sedgwick County. The rules that were developed were approved through a resolution in November of 2010, so they're not too terribly old. The key takeaways of this large drainage manual that was developed as 3 volumes was to require detention for flood control whenever you pave 1 acre or more, and then also require water quality whenever you disturb more than 1 acre. But water quality is only for the urbanized area. It's a very small area, and I'll show it on a map. Just recently, a plat just south of Andale is being developed. Went to the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission just in December of this year. They're going to require 2 detention ponds, one on the western side of the development and one on the south side of the development, to control runoff for the to keep the farmers from downstream from flooding their fields. The urbanized area that I talked about just a second ago is this small sliver of land that lies between the city of Wichita and what the Census Bureau thinks is going to develop eventually. And generally it's an area in Oaklawn around Spirit Aerosystems, and those are the only areas that require water quality. And an example of water quality, there's usually 1 or 2 permits that we issue for water quality. And there was one area in Air Capital Fly Line. They're redeveloping that area just north of the hangar where Boeing used to do a lot of modifications of large jets. They're putting in a new building there. Many of you might know already, it made the news. And because there's a large drainage area that comes from the north, they're going to put in what's called a snout. It's a separator that keeps trash and pollutants from moving downstream, which ends up flowing through Deer Lakes Estates, which I'll talk about a little later, and eventually through Oaklawn and into the Arkansas River. So this water quality snout will trap the trash and the pollutants and keep, and then it'll need to be cleaned out about once every 2 years. Also work on blue line streams. Basically, blue line streams are large channels that the government has recognized as being environmentally sensitive. Work with Kansas Wildlife and Parks, Kansas Department of Agriculture, as well as KDHE and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, all 4 of those state and federal agencies, and we coordinate getting permits before any work is done, either with our bridge crew or with our stream maintenance program. One example of that is in January of this year, I applied for a permit. Many of you know Exploration Place ends up collecting a lot of sand and sediment around its building, and it was meant to be an island building that was kind of out in the middle of the river. And Jan Luth, who has been very active and working with both the City of Wichita Flood Control and with Sedgwick County, and I volunteered to get the permits to be able to remove the sediment around the building. And then flood control is both a city-county operation, is planning on probably this month. They were waiting to get finished with all the snow and ice removals so their trucks and their equipment could come in. They'll lower the dam probably for a month, and so we won't have as much water in the river. And then they'll plan on dredging out the sand that's around the building. The stream maintenance program, we have 6 employees that are in the stream maintenance program. We only had 4 at the time that we had the rains in 2016, which caused a lot of flooding in Derby and in Mulvane and other areas throughout the county. It's led by our foreman, Danny Evans. He's been with us for 37 years. Hopefully he'll be here. I think he plans on working another 5 to 7 years, so 5 to 10. So he does a tremendous job, but he has 3 excavators and 2 bulldozers, and works with the truck crew on doing a lot of stream maintenance work. Mainly they do remove sediment from culverts and from bridges, and then they also remove trees and other debris that are in channels that have trees that have fallen over and are creating flooding hazards for the citizens of Sedgwick County.
Does Danny have somebody he's mentoring?
Yeah, there are. We have some other guys that have been there. 2 other employees have been on the stream crew for about 30 plus years as well, and then we have
mentoring them.
No, they aren't mentoring. Then we have 3 other employees that are young, and they've been with the county for 5 to 7 years, and he's mentoring them. So this is the list of these are the locations in 2018 of the places that we did stream maintenance work. Because of the flooding that happened in 2016, we focused a lot on the southeast part of the county. But this is what we've completed. Now that we have 2 additional employees, this is what we've done throughout the county just year to date, just in the first 3 months. We will be moving over to Payne Township. There's 5 bridges that Brian Jacks with Payne, the trustee for Payne Township, notified us that they needed to have some attention, and so we'll be moving to the northwest or northeast corner of the county in Commissioner Meissner's district shortly. But we're planning on trying to hit all the commissioner districts by the end of the year.
What's the difference between the green and the red?
Yeah, the red was the green ones were done by stream maintenance, and then we had a bridge, our bridge crew, Mike Neal. He completed the ones that are in red. And this is the backlog of work projects that we have identified already, but there's even more that just haven't made the map. This is a example of one of our excavators that we use to do the stream maintenance work, and then one of the front end loaders that we use to help move and position the trees that come out and pile them up so they can be hauled off to the west yard, and the trees end up getting burned at in an air curtain that's environmentally friendly to because of the heat, the way the air curtain works, it keeps the wood really hot, and it keeps smoke from a lot of smoke from occurring. This is an example at Lake Afton last year, a project that some of you may have seen these already, but it was a project that the stream maintenance did. There's a lot of erosion downstream of Lake Afton Spillway. We went ahead and filled it in with riprap. That was something that Mark Strofe had requested with the park department. And then the sewer lagoons out there were aging or were a hazard for people that were out in the park, and so we ended up filling in those sewer lagoons with material that was removed from creeks and drainage ways. Oak Lawn had a lot of flooding down in the southeast part of the county in 2016. Reports the water backing up into the streets and into the neighborhoods. This is a drainage channel along 47th Street South that drains to the Arkansas River, and there's another view of that. And we went ahead and used our forestry attachment and removed all the trees, and then now there's grass starting to grow up in that area where the trees once were. Now that has some light to it. Another project that we did, and you may have seen some drone footage of that, was the stabilization along Horseshoe Lake. We went ahead and trimmed up some trees and removed some trees. Stream maintenance did. This was a CIP project that was supposed to be contracted out I think in 2020, and we ended up doing it in advance with our own crews because we could do it a lot quicker and more cost effective. And there's a lot of sediment that was in the lake, and we dredged the sediment out of the lake that had accumulated for 30-40 years. And now this is what the final product looks like at the Horseshoe Lake. Another project that we did early this year is around the kids' pond. There was a lot of bikes end up people almost getting hit by cars, and so we created a bike path along the kids' pond. And this is the bike path that was just built just this beginning of this year. We put in the stream maintenance, put in the riprap that you see on the side of the pond to control erosion, and then there was a little bit of a drop off on the edge of the bike path, and our stream maintenance came in and backfilled that. And then Mark Furry with Noxious Weeds came in and seeded that area, and so that it should look really nice. And we've had a lot of compliments in because of the pedestrians and the bikers and the roller skaters that use this area, because we've created a really nice bike path. Because people, what they had to do before is ride along the road, North Shore Boulevard, for a period of time until they could get connected back with the path. In this area, they only have to cross the street and get directly onto a new path that's been built. But David Spears has supported the park department, or the Sedgwick County Park, a lot, and doing special little projects out there. And this work was only about a couple days worth of work, so it was it's a high visibility project. Another project that we do is sometimes work with the small cities like Mulvane. Kent Hickson, with the city administrator from Mulvane, contacted us about some drainage issues along 111th Street, and some erosion issues, as well as some flooding issues through a farm field. And we went ahead, and this is the before, and then after, we opened up the channel and allowed the water to flow into the creek rather than divert through the farmer's farm field. This is an example picture of a bridge that we cleaned out. It was completely blocked and obstructed with sediment, just farm silt that ends up getting out and blocking the bridges. And we get in there. This happens to be some water in here, but we end up getting in and mucking them out and getting them opened back up so that the roads don't overtop and flood. This is an example. This is a project that we began this year. It's in Mulvane, just northwest of Mulvane. A lady by the name of Pam Bailey, her house happens to be right on the edge of the creek. This is a tributary to I'm trying to see if there's this house that's right in this area, and it's just right on the edge of the creek. And what we're end up going to do is basically bypass this channel and straighten it slightly, put some riprap in there for erosion control, and keep this lady's house from flooding. She's really nervous after the 2016 floods that she was going to flood. She couldn't sleep, and she couldn't leave her house, unattended for periods of time. And so she's really happy. It was a partnership where we told her we weren't sure that we could get the permits to straighten the channel. I asked her if she would get the permits with the Corps of Engineers and DWR, which I didn't think she was going to be able to get accomplished, which she ended up getting the permits to do the work. Then we went ahead and committed to doing the dirt work for it. So with our crews, this was the plan that was done, and it's kind of hard to see. But we went ahead and stacked up the trees that were blocking the channel, opening up the channel a little bit more, and you can see on the lower right the channel where the water will flow through that channel a lot easier. Another project that we're doing is in Andale, probably sometime in the next 2 months. There'll be the city of Andale, the public works director, had requested us to clean out the channel through there. There's a floodplain that goes along. Is it 200? It's Andale Road, but I'm not sure. 247th, I think. west. But it goes right by our west yard, large drainage channel, in that it needs to be cleaned out. It hasn't been cleaned out for years, and so stream maintenance plans on opening that channel up. You can see that over on one of the box cells has been silted in, and it has a lot of bit of silt on the right hand side of that box, and so we're planning on dressing that up with our crews. One of the things that we do on an annual basis is install these bridges that I've talked about earlier that are with our in-house bridge crew. These are the locations that 2019 that we plan on installing. So they're pretty spread out throughout the county. They're identified as being insufficient with a sufficiency rating under 50, and like a good box bridge. There's one, for example, there's a timber bridge that we plan on adding to the list over there on 37th Street. Commissioner Dennis knows about that. We've had a lot of complaints about flooding over there in northwest Sedgwick County. And anyway, this is an example of a before shot of an old bridge in poor condition, and another shot of it, and then we end up putting together the engineering design plans for it, and then getting the permits for it, relocating utilities, getting temporary easements and permanent right-of-way, and this is the finished product of what our bridge crew does. And the cost of this was about $139,000. It's probably be $250,000 or more if we had a contractor do it ourselves, rather than our crew. This is another example of a bridge plan, and then the finished product with riprap around the box for erosion control. This was only $90,000. Pretty big improvement. And lastly, Deer Lakes Estates. There was there's a tornado that went through about 5 years ago through Spirit Aero Systems, ripped the roof off of Spirit Aero Systems, ended up causing a lot of trees to get twisted and downed. And the Deer Lakes Estates is a small unincorporated area just south of 47th Street, and they have a large reserve with a creek that drains most of what used to be Boeing's campus. And we went ahead and using funds that the county had approved, we hired an arbor masters, and they've gone and trimmed out a lot of the trees, left some of the larger trees standing, but took out the brush that on the trees that had fallen. You can see this is an example of a tree that had fallen completely off and down into the creek, and we trimmed it off at the base. And then this is another picture of the channel now that it's been opened up. We might have to come in and put some riprap in there to control some bank erosion, but the trees were all twisted and crossed in the creek, and it created a lot of flooding. It's all a floodplain, but we've been cleaning it up, and they're about finished with this project right now. They've spent about 3 months working in this area, and I think the total cost expended is about $250,000. But that was the presentation that I gave the SCAC a couple months ago, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions for Scott?
Comment. Well, first of all, thank you for the presentation. Again, the reason I asked for this is because he presented at the Sedgwick County Association of Cities and did a great job, and the cities are very thankful for our stream maintenance efforts across Sedgwick County. I guess from my understanding, and you're welcome to comment, but when we talk about floods, we haven't had floods here really since about 2016, but I know that they're going to come back. I don't know if you want to talk about how often that happens. I mean, seems like we have a flood event every 5 years or so. We had pretty bad flooding in 2016, and so Johnson County does it a different way than we are. But I guess my understanding is that it kind of takes two thoughts on how to manage the water. One of those is infrastructure on the upstream. Think places like retention ponds and places like that kind of manages the water in a controlled fashion upstream, and as well as trying to remove the clogs downstream so water can flow away, doesn't back up in our tributaries. And I'd like to have you comment on that, if you don't mind.
Sure. I mean, one of the things that we try to do in Sedgwick County is to get the water downstream efficiently as possible, keep the waterways open and flowing into Sumner County. We may, I'm not sure if we're causing any problems in Sumner County. I haven't had any complaints, but we try to, one of the things that we've done, we've spent about 10 years to clean the Cowskin Creek from Hayesville all the way to the county line. There's only a couple locations along the Cowskin that haven't been cleaned, but for the most part, things flow really well. The trees are preserved. We leave the trees on the outside, but we go in there and strategically take out the down limb timber that's in the channel itself. And so we've tried to do that on most of our major creeks and waterways. We spend a lot of time up on North Ridge Road on the Little Arkansas River, cleaning the Little Arkansas River before it enters into the city of Wichita, and then flood control takes over from there. The flood events are probably, we usually seems like we have one major flood event about every 10 years. We had one in 98, we had one in 2008, then we had one in 2016. It seems like sometimes it's a little bit more frequent than that, maybe 5 years, but we usually typically have a good sized rain event about every 10 years.
Can you tell us about, we increased our crew back from 4 to 6 this last couple of years, and we added equipment, I understand. And so are we catching up on our backlog?
We are. We're probably going to clean up the backlog all this year, and but then we're also having every 2 years we have a bridge inspector, that bridge engineer goes out and inspects all of our culverts. They found 200 issues. Out of the 600 bridges that we have, they found 200 locations that needed to be addressed. And so I think we'll get through the backlog that I've identified, but then we'll have a larger backlog of the ones that our bridge engineer identified. And some of those require, our bridge crew going in there and redecking a bridge with a timber bridge, or fixing the back walls of the bridge, or going in and putting riprap around to control erosion that's happening around the edges of the bridges. So there's just a lot of different issues, but we're gonna get these things addressed.
I noticed lately in the news some of the communities have had their dike near the communities is broken because it wasn't taken care of. Can you talk about? It may not be your deal, but is our big ditch in good shape? Are we at risk? Because that's been in the news from other communities this last month or so.
Yeah, the flood control project, which the city and county work together on. I coordinate with Joe Hickel with the city of Wichita, as well as Jim Hardesty. Whenever there's an issue that we get those, there's monies that are programmed. We have $500,000 that's programmed that the county contributes to the flood control project on an annual basis, and we're addressing things like tow drains, drainage structures. There's some blowouts that happened on the Wichita Drainage Canal just this past year, and we're going to spend some money to fix and repair those areas along the drainage canal that's just upstream of where Joyland used to be, if you're familiar with that area. But I don't see that we're going to have the problems that they're experiencing floods that are greater than a 100-year event up in Nebraska right now. It's just tragic what's going on up there. But I know that our levees are in great shape. They have cleared out a lot of the trees that were in the channels or along the edges of the levees, and have left and maintained those areas of open space, which is important for maintaining a project that size.
I noticed that the Stormwater Advisory Board appears to not be meeting any longer. Is that true? Do you know?
Yeah, we haven't met since early last year. The city of Wichita has a Stormwater Advisory Board as well. They still continue to meet, but I think they're going to try to meet on a quarterly basis, even though they have a lot of their issues that have been addressed.
And that's just for inside Wichita?
That's only for inside Wichita.
I know a couple of years ago the Stormwater Advisory Board stopped meeting, and we tried to dust that off and start that back up again, especially after the 2016 floods. We kind of started that back up, and I don't know if there's any value in them meeting or not, but it's disappointing that they're not meeting right now. I don't know what would it take to get them to meet, and I think the problem really is there's an issue of revenue. We don't have revenue to do any projects apparently, and I don't know. David?
I might just.
Sure.
We started that after the 500-year flood in 1998, and we had a study by Black and Beach, and then after we formed that committee, twice the committee has reported back to the commission and given a business plan and made recommendations. The committee has done, they have identified all of the drainage projects in the county, of which there's over $500 million worth. So there's really nothing else for the committee to do. They've even come up with a way to prioritize the projects, a system to do that. They've done all they can do. It seems like a waste of time for them to meet anymore. I mean, this has gone on since past 90, so almost 20 years. So the problem is, just have to identify some funding to do the projects. So that's where we're at, and there's really no need for the committee to waste time because they've identified all the projects. And so that's why they don't meet.
Well, I guess I'd just like to state my thought would be I think we need to have a dedicated revenue stream for this, and I don't know how to do that, but we're going back into the budget cycle again. And so I just want to say that it would be nice if we would find a revenue stream that would provide some dollars every single year to projects on that. I know we're going to $500 million. It seems like it's an elephant, and we need to take a bite of the elephant. And so some revenue would do something. And right now we're doing, other than stream maintenance, which I appreciate greatly. And by the way, I am so impressed with your crew. I love the report, and I know that you guys are making a huge difference. And I want to say thank you. You're one of my favorite people in Sedgwick County. I think you do a tremendous job. But having said that, I would like to work on trying to find a revenue stream of some sort, whether it be a solid waste fee. We do a solid waste fee. I know that's an option, or we do a tiny little sales tax, but something that would generate revenue that we would begin to start solving this problem. And it really isn't just downstream. I mean, the problem is across the entire county. Now, you show a lot of projects down in the southeast part of the county right now, but that's really not the only place in the county that has these problems. It's the whole county-wide, and it's infrastructure and it's maintenance, and so it's both sides of that. And anyway, I have a desire to talk about it, and I'm willing to do difficult things to help solve that problem. I don't know what other people think about that, but I think it's our job to bring solutions to the table. So I'm certainly interested in that discussion. I'll just stop with that. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Any other questions, Commissioner Meitzner?
Scott,
Yeah.
are we paying attention to all the federal grant opportunities for flood control stuff?
We are. Unfortunately, there's not. We've talked to. We've tried to. We've in the past have gone up to get. We've gone to KDEM, Kansas Department of Emergency Management. It's part of the Adjunct General's division that ends up feeding money from FEMA into doing special projects like putting in safe rooms for schools is one of the things that they do. And the other things they do is do drainage projects. We've asked them to do a drainage project out in northwest Wichita on the Cowskin Creek, and they said at the time that the project was too big and too expensive for them to fund. But we still continue to go and talk to them about other projects and try to get funding for flood control related projects. But for the most part, they're just telling us that we have to fund them locally at this time, just because there hasn't been a major disaster in Sedgwick County or in the state of Kansas. That usually what happens, there's a disaster declared, and then then there's money that's made available to communities.
Well, the thought is that I know at the city of Wichita, we have a federal lobbyist that's in Washington that takes every project that Wichita is working on, and he goes to the right federal departments. We talk to the congressional people, but it's the departments that make the decisions, as your experience with FEMA.
Sure.
So maybe we could talk to him and see if he has any access to, because he's talked about water projects, and he represents municipalities and county governments. Does a nice job. So
There's over $30 million of unfunded projects just on the flood control project itself, and we're planning on trying to get a lot of that taken care of over the next 15 to 20 years. And so if there's an opportunity to get federal funds to help us, get that ramrodded sooner, that'd be great.
then my only comment, and Mr. Spears referenced that I always get confused when I hear about these 500-year floods when our country is only like 350 years old, and I don't know how we get 500 years. But that's all right. Oh, okay. It's a rounding error, right, Finance?
Pierce remembers all those floods for 500 years.
500 years. You don't look 500 years old.
I feel like
Any other questions from commissioners? Back on your slide with Andale. Was
Yeah.
the red on that slide, was that flood area based on the Cowskin?
That's correct, It's a tributary of the Cowskin Creek.
Well, that's not good, because we're looking at buying a piece of property right in the middle of that red area.
Well, then
And that's not a good idea then.
probably not a good idea. Especially if you have emergency vehicles that want to get in and out of that area.
One more reason I don't like that piece of property.
Okay.
Good.
All right. Well, thanks.
That's good information. Thank you. All right. What else you have for us this
That's all
morning?
we had, sir.
Very good. Any of the staff have anything today? Commissioner Lehman, you got anything today?
Just a reminder that if you live in Renwick School District, it is election day today, and tomorrow we are drawing a precinct out of a hat to know which precinct we're going to audit. So if you want to have some time, come over to our office at 2 o'clock and watch us draw a precinct out of a hat. It'll be the same hat we use for vote ties. And I did want to mention that Senate Bill 130 did pass on report. I was just listening to the audio before I walked across here. Pardon me? It's the vote center bill, I'm sorry. It's the bill that contains the amendment for the vote center bill. So it does still have to go back to House and Senate, but it did pass, so we're still kicking.
The conference committee passed it out?
Yes.
All right. That is great news. Thank you.
That's why I was late.
Very good. And thanks for coming to my Citizens Advisory Board last night. I appreciate it. Very good. Mr. Clerk, you got anything? Go Shockers. Go Shockers. Tonight's the night. Good. Any of the other staff around the outside have anything today? First of all, I want to point out that hanging by the door right now is the bill that was signed by Governor Collier last year, which gave us urban area designation. Commissioner Howell framed that for us. We want to thank him for doing that. But that's an important document for us because that gives us the ability to do things that other counties can't do, because we can have a bill passed just for Sedgwick County. So I think that it belonged in the boardroom, and so that was hung yesterday. I just wanted to tell Commissioner Howell, thanks for framing that. Very good. Well, I don't know if we got anything else for this, but I know I got a busy day, so we'll go back to work. Thank you all.
You know what? We just toured, why don't we just meet?